Welcome, everybody. We have another episode Against the Grain podcast. I'm so excited to introduce my friend. I got George in the building. What's up, George?
What's up, man?
AKA Jorge, AKA Jorge. I've heard the craziest way to pronounce your name. But how do you like to be? What do you go by?
Man, honestly, it's funny. I always tell people it's just however you could say it. If you could say Jorge, let's do Jorge. If you could say if it's George, I'm cool with George too.
And I just want to introduce you real quick, man, because it's funny how we met. So you and I used to work together.
Yeah.
Used to work. Actually, I don't even know. Are you still there with that company?
No, I'm not. I'm not there anymore at Travelers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How long? When did you leave or whatever?
So I think December of 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I left in July of 2021.
Okay, yeah. So about 5-6 months after.
That's crazy. So so you and I, we used to work together. We were claims adjusters in Diamond Bar, and that was fun, man. We had such a great time in our office.
Yeah.
So real quick, our office setup, it was so cool because we had our own little section, our death row and stuff. We used to call it it was cool, man. We all had the same supervisor and stuff, and we had such a good group of coworkers, dude. Honestly, I look back in that time, like, man, we were blessed. Like, little did we know that it was gonna end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really was, because I think that was my first. I've been in admin office jobs for a long time, and that was my first. I always tell my wife too, like, that was the first job where where we had a lot of guys.
Yeah,
it was a lot of guys, a lot of dudes, and so that really made it fun because we were able to mess around. You know what I mean? Like, it was the culture at that office, it was by far, it was probably the best one. Yeah,
for sure. And I've worked in other claims offices and stuff like that, but dude, nothing compares to that. Like, good times. And then we got really close too because as us guys, I think it was like 4 or 5 of us.
Yeah.
Was it 4 of us? 5 of us? Jimmy was there.
Yeah.
Cortland, Will, all of us, right? I think it was 5 of us because he used to fit in my car. Sometimes we'd go. And it was fun because we'd go out to lunch together.
Yeah, we'd have our weekly lunches.
Dude, shout out Taco Naso across the street from Mount Sac.
Taco Naso,
dude,
heck yeah, bro. Hey, we hooked them, man. I remember Will and CT, they got hooked on that, man. They wanted to go every day.
Dude, I mean, we're in Baldwin Park right now, so we're not too far. So honestly, I showed my wife that place because there's other Taco Nasos around here. But I showed her that one. Dude, we go there still. Like, from being at the office and stuff, finding out about that, we go there. So it's just funny. But I'll say this. So, we used to work together, go to lunch and all that. Yeah. And I could always tell, to be honest, that you were different. Shout out to our friends and stuff, but, they just weren't saved. They weren't, where we're at, right? Yeah. So, sometimes the conversations and stuff like that, and it never got too crazy, but sometimes the conversations you could tell, or, hey, I was doing this and this and that this weekend and stuff like that or whatever. But I can always say when I would look at you, I could tell something was there. And we never brought up, it wasn't this big old God thing. We never but you could just tell, you know what I mean? When you can just tell. Yeah. Did you ever kind of know? Because I think I think they already kind of knew that I went to church and stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember I would see you and I saw like you were always, I mean, I wouldn't call it reserved, but you were, you had your reservations. But I used to love that, you still would come and chill with us, you know what I mean? And so I was, but I always saw that too. I always saw, I was like, yeah, there's something. And then I think I started following you on IG. And then when I started to follow you on IG, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it makes sense, man. Makes sense. I saw you, your wife sings, and I started seeing things, worship, drum, right? Yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, man. I was like, so that definitely confirmed what I saw too.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's important, us being Christians and stuff. It's like, we can't just be weird, like, I mean, there's got to be, there's going to be Christians sometimes that would have just, saw a group of guys like that and just been like, I'm just going to eat my lunch in my car. You know what I mean? And it's just like, no, I want to be around people. I want to connect with people and be that light. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we were talking off cam, like, a situation happened, one of our coworkers and stuff. And we're able to be like, man, like, I know that they looked up to us. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you reached out to them on this and that. Yeah. Like, that's what we're there for. When people go through stuff, to be like, hey, I know who I can call for something,
Yeah, exactly, man. And I'm 100% in agreement with you on that. And I think I've always tried to be like that, where I've always tried to embrace people. I've had a lot of situations happen in my life where it made me realize that, what, the best thing to do, the best thing to be is to just be the best example that I can be, but while at the same time, embracing new people, and it's true. Like, I've been able to, I still have a great relationship with some of them, that I used to work with in the office. They no longer work there either anymore. They've moved on to different jobs as well. But we still keep in touch, and I've been able to talk with them even outside of things, and pray with them. You know what I mean? And like you said, that would have never happened if, I would have been shut off. I would have been in the break room and been like, man, no, I'm just going to read my Bible
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, no, like I said, I've always kind of put that, like, wherever I go, I don't necessarily have to open up the Bible, you know what I mean, to preach to them. I could be that living scripture for them,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and just embrace them for who they are, you
Yeah.
know?
Amen. That's good, man. And so like, yeah, so that was that. That's our kind of, history together and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think that's what happened was the, Instagram and everything. And then I started noticing like, you posted like a picture or something of, or a flyer, I'm sorry, of your church and stuff. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. And then, I have friends, Ryan, shout out to Ryan. He was on this podcast like last month and stuff. And so, I do know some of the Victory outreaches and stuff. And then I saw that you went to the one it's San Bernardino, right?
Yeah, we're Spanish, Alcance Victoria, Victory Outreach, and in San Bernardino.
San
In the
Bernardino.
Dino.
Shout out to the D. And so I was like, oh, it's so cool. And dude, it's so crazy. On YouTube, one of the recommended videos was your church. And I was like, oh, I wonder, like, I'm just going to check it out, bro. And then I saw you like on stage, like preaching and stuff. And I was like, dude, this is so cool. So then, fast forward to, even just like a couple months ago, now seeing you start your podcast. So you have your own podcast, right? Offbeat.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that. And then we'll get to a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so Offbeat Podcast, man, it really was a work that we started, and it didn't come from one moment to another. Like, it really took time. I was honestly hesitant, to really start the podcast, but it was something that just to kind of give the backstory of it, I remember one time we were counseling, talking to some young couples. And, God's really given us that grace, to really, my wife and I, to really talk to young couples and young adults, young men, young women. And one day I went with her and I told her, you know what, I think if we're going to really help them, I think we need to really be open and transparent about personal things that have gone on in our life. And, and I remember her telling me, she's like, honestly, I'm okay with it. I know you're the one that struggles the most with being open and transparent. I know it's hard for you. And I said, yeah, you're right. So when she told me that, it was confirmation. And I remember we opened up about certain personal things to some of these couples that we were working with. And what we saw happen was that through that transparency, through that vulnerability, they were able to open up, and they were able to start the process of healing in their own lives. And, from there, we started to really hear, like, you guys should start a podcast. You should start a podcast. And it really was something that was always burning in my heart. But honestly, man, the internet's scary.
Yeah, for sure. For sure it is.
You know what I mean? The internet is scary, dude. And I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend to be this bold, confident dude. Like, it's scary to me, and because things that I've gone through, and we can get into that a little bit, but it was hard, but it just kept burning. And the whole vision of Offbeat, that's the name Offbeat, is, life sometimes presents, or sometimes the way we grow up, our family, sometimes even in our churches, we're taught that there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm that we should follow. There's a way of life that we should follow. And I believe that with all my heart, that there are certain things we should stay away from. But there more times than not, we find ourselves falling away. We find ourselves making the wrong decisions, and we get off beat. We get off rhythm. And so what do we do from there? And the whole vision of this podcast is to bring people on here, and that might have success stories. I shared my story. That was the first opener, because I felt that, my life truly was offbeat, but yet even through that, God is able to find a rhythm. God is able to put us into our own rhythm. And it's the rhythm that he created us to be from the first place. We don't have to hide behind anything or anyone, or, give in to what other people think about us. God created us specifically for our own individual purpose. And it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful when we begin to live in that freedom.
Amen. Amen. That's good, man. And we'll get the plug in later and stuff, but it's amazing to see everything that you're doing, all the platforms you guys are doing. I mean, it's amazing. I know you kind of just started this channel and it's picking up. I know you guys are doing a giveaway and stuff like that. It's so cool, man. But I was just like so excited about it. I was like, man, let's get you on here. Let's talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about everything. But I mean, honestly, people probably look at you right now and be like, man, this guy's amazing. He's preaching all these things and stuff. But they have no clue about your past. Yeah. Obviously, unless they saw, your guys' podcast, 'cause I know you covered it. But when I was watching it, I had heard a little bit about your story. Yeah. I'll never forget one time we were at the office, and this is pre-COVID and stuff, 2019, right? We're all there in the office still. This is before everyone was working from home. I think when everyone started working from home, like a couple days out of the week, I noticed things kind of shifted a little bit, you know? Yeah. And then, so I was like, man, but this is before all that. But anyways, I remember you showing us a picture. And, you have your a jacket on or whatever, but you're sleeved up, you got tattoos and everything. And so, I kind of knew like, okay, he's got a pass, he looks cool and stuff, whatever. But then you showed us a picture. And dude, you were like banged out and everything. I remember that. I don't know if that in that photo. Did you have a shaved head? Did you have a shaved head in that photo? Or no?
I don't. Yeah, I think in that photo, I think I just had a buzz cut.
Oh, okay.
I might have just had it. Yeah.
But you for sure looked way different, bro. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna ask you to do a whole fit check right now, but I remember in the office you'd be like skinny jeans, right? Still got them on, right? Both sleeves. You just look like, I wouldn't say hipster, right? Yeah. But definitely not gangster. You're not banged out. You're not some cholo. None of that stuff. Yeah. But when you showed me that photo, I was like, whoa, like where are you from, bro? Like Echo Park, like you know what I mean? We've talked, we've like seen all the videos. We were joking one time about that Mi Vida Loca and stuff like that. So I kind of had an idea, like, okay, and then when you showed us that photo, I was like, wow, that's crazy, like night and day difference. So anyways, throw us way back, dude. Talk to us a little bit about your story. Your story is it goes ups and downs in Mexico and back here in Vegas and everything. But throw us kind of way back. Give us kind of an intro of your story.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a first generation Mexican American. Both my parents, they were immigrants. My mom came from Durango, Mexico, and my dad from Michoacan, and they came to this country just like any immigrant, for the better life. And, in the process, I was born here in California. It's crazy. I was born right here, just maybe like 15 minutes from here in Pomona.
Oh, wow. P-Town.
Yeah. So P-Town. And, but I was diagnosed with asthma at a real early age. And so the doctors recommended that we needed to go to somewhere more dry. And there's no other place closer than here to dry than Vegas.
Yeah, for sure.
Desert, nothing but desert. So we ended up moving to Vegas, and there in Vegas, we ended up moving to a real rough neighborhood. It's and I think the reason why we ended up moving there was because my great grandma used to live there. She had an apartment right there in the projects. And so it was just easy for my mom to, get in, and, we were able to move into an apartment right there in the projects. But during that time, we're talking, in the early 90s, man, it was when Vegas was popping with hoods. It was like, we lived right there in a popular street, 28th Street, and in between Stewart and Bonanza.
Where's this at as far as shit? Like if you're on the 15 freeway, I know there's like Henderson, all these different places. Like where is it exactly if you're looking at like a map or something?
Yeah, so it's East Vegas.
Okay,
East Vegas. Yeah, okay. So it's like if you're going towards Old Downtown, Fremont Street.
Yeah.
And then you get the freeway, the 95, I think south. I'm sorry, the 95 south. Like if you're going towards Boulder Station and all that.
Oh, okay, I know where.
Yeah, so
it's ghetto right there, huh?
Yeah, so it's like I remember the exit right there is Stewart. So you exit Stewart. And it was right there back then. Now it's cleaned up. It's cleaned up a lot. Those apartments actually don't exist anymore.
Oh wow.
They tore everything down. And but during that time, man, it was gang infested. Like that's the thing, and it was a little bit different than Cali, but they still had the gang culture right there, And so we grew up around that. My brother and I, we grew up around that. That's all we would see is gang activity during the day, at night. And my parents, man, they did their best to try to shelter us away from that. They would, it was prohibited to, any baggy pants, no, baggy shirts, no.
Yeah.
Can we cut our hair? No. can we leave a ponytail? Because that was one of the things that was real popular back then.
The ponytail,
The
yep.
ponytail, you know.
Yep.
But that was a symbol of one of the gangs there.
Oh,
You know,
really?
so they were like, heck no. You know what I mean? So, you know, they try to really protect us from that. And honestly, like, they did a good job at doing that. They did their best at doing that, you know, but we were still attracted to that. You know, we were still very, very attracted to it. You know, it was something that, man, you know, when I grow up, I want to be a gangster. You know, I want to have a lowrider. I want to dress like them, be like them, have money like them, have cars like them. You know, that was the dream, you know, growing up, you know, and I think it was very easy to be attracted to that too, because, you know, my parents, they both worked. You know, they worked tirelessly and they worked different shifts. And, you know, my dad, you know, he wasn't, you know, he was there, but he wasn't really there with us, you know. And growing up as a child, man, you know, I think that's where my problems really started to stem, you know, was I really wanted to be accepted. You know, I really craved that and I really wanted that, you know, but my dad growing up, he was our number one hero. You know, he really was. And I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be around him, but we always had that rejection, you know. And my dad was a young man. He was very young. So now that I have children, I understand, you know, but growing up, it was very difficult for me to understand, you know, why my dad didn't want us around, you know. And he would go out and he didn't want us around. He would go to visit family. He didn't want us to go. He would visit Mexico. And for years he wouldn't take us at first. Wow. Later on he did, but so we couldn't really understand that. So, but the homies were, you know, the homies were there. You know, they would embrace us. You know, I remember they would constantly, the older ones would come and embrace us. You know, they would hug us and say, what do you need? You know what I mean? Do you need this? Do you need that? You know, they were constantly trying because they wanted to recruit us.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's the way they would see it. You know, now I see that. At that time, I just felt love. You know, I felt like, man, like these guys, you know, not only are they cool, not only do they have the cars, not only do they have the money, the girls, the women, you know, but they actually love you. At least that's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
It's crazy.
So yeah, that was like the growing up, that's what we saw, you know, and we finally were able to kind of get away from that at the age of 10. And that's when, you know, my
So you weren't from there up in this point. You wouldn't get jumped in, none of that stuff, right?
Not yet. Like they would mess with us. Like every now and then, like that's kind of the way they would mess around, is like we would be around and they would kind of circle you and they'd be like, all right, you're ready? You're ready? And I think my brother, he also protected me a lot, because I remember there was times where they would just come and rough us up. They would rough me and some of the other younger ones. But my brother would always kind of come in and he'd be like, hey, like he's not from anywhere. Like he's not, you know what I mean? Like they'd be like, no, we did it already. It's official. And my brother would kind of be like, nah, man, like chill. And then they'd be like, nah, we're just messing around. So it was never like official. But like for me, it was kind of like, man, yeah, that's the next step I want. You know, but we kind of, again, like, you know, we kind of just, we hung around. We got into a lot of trouble, man. Like growing up, like that's where we learned a lot of bad habits, man, like stealing. And we learned, you know, just all kinds of trouble, man. We would get into abandoned buildings, man. And we're like, and now that I look back, I'm like, bro, what were we doing? We would constantly get into fights with rivals, you know what I mean? Even though we weren't from there. But we would constantly be at each other's throats, you know, and
so you're just like you're kind of like affiliated, but you're not all the way in.
Yeah. So we're just trying to prove ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, but finally at 10 years old, you know, my parents, they achieved a big pillar of the American dream. They became homeowners, you know, and so they were able
out of the projects, out of the PJ.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, man, and that's one thing I admire about them so much, you know, is that they were, you know, even though we had to start off there, you know, and you know, it wasn't the best place, you know, but I understand now that that's the step they had to take, you know, in order for them to eventually get to the place they wanted to be, you know, and so they purchased their home. You know, we moved to still in the East Side Vegas, but it was to a better place, and Vegas at that time, it really was. Now you go to East Side of Vegas and you ask anyone from Vegas, like East Side of Vegas, no, everyone wants to move away from the East Side of Vegas. So, but because it's you know, it's pretty bad, you know, but at that time, the part where we went, it was and it was nice. It was middle class. You saw a lot of middle class folks with their children, their home, their cars, their yards taken care of. I mean, it was a culture shock, for us because we were used to just apartments. We had no backyard wall. We had no like. I mean, if the projects there was like, you go to the back of the apartment and you see everyone's apartment. Like, it was
Yeah, yeah.
so it was just a culture shock, man. And we moved there, and little by little, man, like we started to kind of shy away from the gangster life. We started to kind of like, okay, that's maybe there is something different for us. Maybe there is something that we can do. We can become something different. My brother and I, we started to like make new friends. But it was hard making friends in the beginning, man. And again, because here I am, a young man that dealt with I had a rejection issue. I had a low self-esteem issue, rejection issue. And honestly, like now that I see it was daddy issues. I had daddy issues, real bad daddy issues because I was really craving the love of my dad, but emotionally it wasn't there. So in the beginning, we didn't dress like the people there. We were still with the same clothes. We still, our mentality was still kind of the same. Our parents, they weren't financially there to buy us the best clothes. They just bought a house. And then my mom became pregnant with my sister at that time. So now finances are more tight.
So there's three of you now.
Yeah,
so
so now there's going to be three of us now at that time. So we're like, you know what? Like we roughed it up. We did what we could, but we were made fun of a lot, man.
Because of like the way you guys look.
Yeah, the way we look, the way we did our hair, the way we, so that so what that did was that I just kept wanting, like, man, I just want to be accepted. I just want to be accepted. I just want to be accepted, man. And we were far from our old friends now, so we just had to kind of blend in, and I think that's where the identity issue started to come in too, because I was like, man, now I just want to blend in. How can I blend in? So we were just striving to fit in. That's all we were striving to do, fit in. How can we get the clothes that we need? How can we start haircuts? You know what I mean? Like, it's tough being a kid, dude. Now looking back, like where, bullying and all that, you know what I mean? Like now it's a lot more, there's a lot more awareness to it.
For sure.
But back then, dude, it was kind of like, it was unspoken of, it's just kind of like, you just roughed it up, and did your best, but a lot of the issues that I started to struggle with as an adult, a lot of that stemmed from my childhood. And, eventually we started to blend in, we started to feel. And then I think the biggest thing that turned around was in 6th grade. Now, new junior high, middle school at that time. I went in and, I even talk about it on my story a little bit where there were some things that happened, that ended up getting me arrested.
Yeah, you did talk about it in your podcast, and I was very shocked, shocked because a lot of people would kind of feel weird talking about it.
Yeah.
But you didn't go into the craziest detail, but you definitely gave some stuff. So whatever you feel comfortable sharing, but it was pretty crazy what you went through, the whole kind of like the situation there. Talk about it if you feel that.
Yeah. So basically, I was 11 years old at that time, and we used to ride the school bus at that time, and so it was a group of friends. It was a group of us. I want to say it was maybe about 5 or 6 of us, that used to hang out in the back of the bus. And, so what started to happen is that some inappropriate touching, there was inappropriate touching involved from both parties, both girls and boys. And, and it was just something that it happened one day, the next day, it was something that just kept happening because again, we're 11 years old.
Yeah.
We're just messing around, there's nothing further than that, But what ended up happening was that one day, one of the girls that typically doesn't ride along with us, she ended up seeing what was going on. And, she probably, for whatever reason, she probably grew up in a better home where they were taught differently. And so I think she spoke about it to her parents. And so the parent, just took it to a whole nother level, took it to the school, and just demanded action and just, something needs to be done. And so that's exactly what happened. And the school ended up suspending us. They brought us in. They questioned us, and we're 11 years old, so we were honest. We're like, this is happening. I remember we even talked to the other. I think to some of the other kids involved. We're like, hey, what's gonna happen? Like, what? We're just scared. We're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And and some even the girls, they were like, no, don't worry about it. Like, my parents said that it's not a big deal, like this and that. And so we kind of like, okay, well, but it's we're just scared. We're like, man, like, we messed up. So we go into the parent teacher conference. Actually, not parent teacher, but it was with the dean. So we go in with the dean, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and so I go in, and then my mom goes in with me, and then all of a sudden, I see a patrol car outside, but I didn't think nothing of it. And so the dean is like, hey, you know what, given the situation, this is out of my hands, and again, this is the first thing that's happened in elementary or in middle school. Like, other than that, like, nothing ever outside has ever happened. I've never had any issues, suspensions, or anything.
Yeah.
And so then she's like, it's out of my hands. You know what? We're gonna, the parents want to take action, this and this. So it's my duty, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, two officers come in, and you know what I mean? Like, they grab me, they read us our rights, or whatnot, handcuff us.
And you're in 6th grade.
And I'm just in 6th grade, bro. I'm in 11 years old.
Jeez.
And you know what I mean? And I'm being taken into a cop car. And what that really changed a lot for me, man, because here I am, man. I'm thinking like things are different now. Like, I've escaped that life. I've escaped gang banging. I escaped 28th Street. I escaped, you know what I mean, having to live that life. My parents are providing us with a better life, but here I am at 11 years old, man, and I'm being treated like a criminal. Something that, yeah, maybe before it was my dream, thinking that was the life, but now everything is just going backwards now. Like, instead of moving forward, like, I guess I am a criminal, and I really think that was the moment in my mind where I'm like, you know what, maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Like, maybe I am a mess up, maybe I am, I'm meant to just, because after that, everything eventually was dropped, you know what I mean? Because, even the courts, everything, we didn't have to go to trial or anything. And, the public defender and the court system, everything agreed that, you know what, it was a juvenile offense, and it was petty, so everything was dropped. No charges were filed or anything, but that experience still scarred me. It really scarred me, man, because it really took me back and say, man, you know what, I'm in the hood. I escaped the hood, you know what I mean? But it still follows me. It's like this gang activity or this criminal activity is still following me. And they ended up kicking me out of the school. Like, I couldn't go back to the school. So I ended up having to go back to the middle school that I was zoned for in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah. So Roy Martin, if anyone, Roy Martin was
him out.
at that time, man, was one of the worst
Really?
middle schools in Vegas, man. One of the worst, man. Because it was right in the heart of, like, literally, like, 28th Street in Stewart, and that's where, like, across the street, I think at that time it was, I forget the name of it, but there was, like, shootings, killings all the time across the street. That's where all the gangs would hang out, the main gang there would always hang out right there. Drug dealers, everything, you know what I mean? And so I ended up having to go back, so, and I was cool for, I want to say, for a good 2 years, you know what I mean? Like, in 6th grade and 7th grade, I held myself up. I really tried my best to, like, stay out of trouble. You know what I mean? And I think what helped me was because I didn't live there. I think because during school, like, I would hang out with the homies at that time, and we would try to, but they still lived in the hood. And then me, I was getting picked up and I was going back to my house. So I think that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And I think like it's not like today where social media and
Right.
text messaging and like, hey, come through. Like it wasn't like that. Like,
Yeah, once you're disconnected, it's kind of like two different worlds. Like you're out of it.
Yeah.
You're not on Instagram, none of that stuff.
yeah, and it literally felt like that. Like I literally was like stuck in the middle of both worlds. Like it really did, you know. And so for the longest, I kind of kept cool. You know, I kept my head up. I wasn't that good in school. You know, like I'm not gonna sit here and say like I was doing good in school because I wasn't. Like I was always getting into fights, getting suspended. RPC.
What about like academically? Like, were you like good in that sense, or still like was it school struggle for you?
You know what? Like I always just kind of took on a lazy attitude when it came to academics. Like
I was gonna say, bro, you're smart. Like, cause the work that we've done is like adjusters and stuff. That's hard work, bro. You got to be detailed. You got to be all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like I know you're smart. So it's like that's why I'm wondering like how were you in school? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I say lazy because I really do feel like I was because I never really, you know, and that's what's sad. That's what's sad about, you know, growing up with these childhood issues because you really give yourself, especially with identity issues, because when it comes to identity issues, you really give yourself to the mercy of others. You know, you really do. You really start to live your life according to what others want you to be because you're looking for their approval.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's so sad about that. And that was me, you know, is I knew that I could do better, but I wouldn't, you know, and I remember having teachers too that would tell me the same thing. And there were certain classes that I would overachieve because they would, you know, there was good teachers that would really push me. But other than that, you know, I really, you know, if the homies weren't doing homework, I wasn't doing homework. You know, if they weren't turning in work, I wasn't turning in work. If they were failing the test, I would fail the test. And it's sucks, dude. It's sad. Now you think about it now, and it's like, dude, like but that's why, you know, growing up with rejection, identity issues, man, it's such a real thing, you know, and that's one thing that I really feel called to bring awareness of, you know, is to really help in that area, you know, because it nearly destroyed my life, you know, and it did for a long time, you know, because finally, you know, because of all the trouble that I was going through, that's when my parents sent me to Mexico. You know, they sent me to Michoacan, Mexico, and they told me, all right, you know, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you know what I mean? You're moving with your aunt.
Got into it with some homies on the basketball court. You got shipped out. That's crazy.
So I was, you know, because I was playing soccer. I was playing soccer at that time, and I was good at it. And that would help me stay out of trouble. But during school hours, that's when it was all out. You know, that's where I would act out. That's where I would be a fool, get suspended, detention, and fights, all that, you know. And so my parents, they were like, look, man, like if you're not gonna get it together, you're gonna go to Mexico. You're gonna go and you're gonna learn what it is to live out there.
Did that scare you or no?
See, that's the thing. Like at first it was kind of nerve-wracking because I'm like, dang, like, you know, 6 months, because that was the goal, 6 months. So I'm like, man, like I've visited Mexico and I love the culture. I love it, bro. I love it. And so at first I'd be kind of like, yeah. But then I'd kind of be like, I don't know, man. Like, I think I'm going to miss it. But that year we ended up going. And when we went, you know what? I again, like I embraced everything. I embraced the culture. You know, I used to love, you know, I was like a chameleon, man. Like I blended in. Like I just, you know, as soon as I got there, like, you know, over there's a lot of like jaripeos and charreadas and horse races and rooster fights. And I mean, it's a whole nother culture.
You're telling me you traded in the Cortez for some botas, some boots, huh?
Bro. So like, and I literally did, man. Like, I'm like, you know what? Like, sign me up. You know what? And I went back and I didn't go back, but my dad was there and I said, you know what? I want to stay. And they're kind of like, what? Like, are you for real? I'm like, yeah, I'm for real. Like, I want to stay. And they're like, okay. They couldn't back out now. And so I was out there for 2 years. Wow. And I think that it was kind of one of those things where, like, because I embraced it and then I was embraced. You know, it was to this day, like I still have really good friends and family that are still out there or that are here that we spend time together. Yeah,
I've seen you like on your Instagram, you'll go back and visit and stuff. Even when you're at Travelers, I remember going like you would take PTO and go out there in Mexico and stuff.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. The culture, I love it. I love it. And And that was me, man. Like I have some pictures too, man. I wish I know they're somewhere, but I'm with the sombrero, you know, I got the shirt, the las botas, you know, I mean, I still wear some boots.
AK.
You know, I had a horse out there.
Really?
Yeah, his name was Mapa, and it
Nice.
was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And but at the same time though, since there's so much freedom out there. So that's where like I started to like eventually I started to mess up again. You know, because again, like there's good influences and then bad influences.
Yeah.
And I was always just drawn to bad influences, man.
I always say this, like a lot of people, you know, whether it's a church, whether it's whatever it is, you know, that people will leave and everything. And then
Yeah.
later you find out they're still going through the same problem. I always say this, no matter where you go, you still got to take you with you.
Exactly.
You still got to take you with you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if you don't address the problems here in Vegas, then the
Yeah.
problems are going to come up in Mexico. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, you got to deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's what I kept wanting to, and I was getting it, but I always wanted to feel that acceptance.
Yeah.
And over there, it was, you know, it was a whole nother level. You know, every time I go out there still, you know, I get kind of embarrassed sometimes because you'll have people coming up like, hey, I remember when you were here. They would tell stories, man, and I'd be like, dang, like, you know what I mean? Like, yo, like, too much detail. And, you know, but, you know, because, yeah, you know, I would really live out. I was really trying to prove something, you know, at the same time. You know, I really wanted to prove that I could do it. You know, I wanted to prove. I always had that complex that I needed to prove something to my dad. You know, maybe like that he would accept me. You know, if I embraced his culture, and which I did, I embraced it. You know, I embraced the culture, the hard work that you know over there. It's not like here. Over there is like, you know, it's hard work. And
Were you going to school still during this time?
yes and no. So I would go sometimes, and then so I just started to fall behind. You know, I just started to like really started to go just after the parties, the fiestas, the quinceañeras, the weddings.
And
the
drinking's like really
jaripeos.
normal out there, even for kids, right? Even for teens and
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Oh yeah, man. It was normal to just go to the store and at any moment. And even drinking though, like it wasn't something that I was doing because I'd enjoy it. It's just more something because like I felt pressured. And not pressured, but everyone was doing it.
For sure.
So I'm like, let's do it, you know. But I didn't know how to control it. So I would wild out, man. I would get into a lot of trouble out there. My grandparents finally, you know, they were old, you know, and then my aunts, you know, I gave them a lot of problems, you know, and
What ages were you at this time?
so 13 to 15.
13 to 15?
13 to 15. So finally, I ended up coming back. But dude, it was like one after another because once I came back, it was a culture shock, bro. You know, because even though I was just 2 years in Mexico, but like I said, I indulged and I embraced the culture so much. So when I came back, you know, I almost felt like if I was an illegal immigrant, you know, because I was looked at weird. You know, at school, it was hard for me to connect with people. You know, I would see old friends, and they would just kind of like, oh yeah, I remember you. What's up? And then they would just kind of leave.
And now you're coming back to high school, right?
High school, bro. You know, and high school is a whole nother beast, man. I don't know if you like high school was just, you know, it was like cliques everywhere, and I just couldn't fit into anything, you know. The way I dressed, again, it's like going back. You know, it kept feeling like I would take steps forward, and then just to take, you know, 5-10 steps backwards again, man. And so, and I didn't understand that what I was going through, but it's because I was struggling with identity. You know, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know any of that.
And where was God this whole time in your life? Like, what was your idea of God? Because I know you didn't grow up in church and all this stuff. You didn't have this crazy background. What's your idea of God? What's your family's idea of God? What's your idea with the church? Like, what's your interaction, if any, during this time? Like during this time before 15?
Yeah, very little, very little. I like you said, I had no knowledge of who God was. The only knowledge I had was from Catholicism. You know, where we grew up. You know, we grew up. I was baptized Catholic as a baby, but as far as going to church or anything, no. But little did I know, my mom did. My mom did have a Christian background, and I didn't know. She kept that from us for a long time, you know, because my mom has a crazy story too, you know, and she she separated. She left the church, when she was young, because she became pregnant for my brother when she was 15. So that distanced her. And from there, I remember. You know what I do? What I do remember though is that every now and then, when we were little kids, and I remember one particular time, bro, and this was crazy, is that I remember I told you I was asthmatic, so I had a real bad asthma attack, and then at the same time like real bad like flu, like it was bad, and the hospital, they kept saying I was okay. They're like, we can't. There's nothing that we can do. You just take care of him. Just watch him, monitor him closely. And my mom, though, I think that was one thing that was one of the moments that I remember that my mom kind of took her back to her roots, because at that point, I remember she didn't know what to do. And I remember she put me in the car at that time, and it was just me and my brother, I believe, and her. And we drive to this straight apostolic church. Now I know. At that time, I didn't know, bro. I didn't know who it was or what it was. I really didn't. I just remember, bro, like, because now I know what it is now. Because, bro, when we walked into this church, like, there was people like singing and raising their hands and crying. Like, they were crying, like dramatic crying. But I was sick. I remember my mom, she held me, and she took me all the way to the altar, and they were having a time of prayer. And I don't know if somebody invited her. I don't know how she knew that this was going on at that moment. To this day I haven't even asked her, to be honest with you. But I remember going, and I remember the pastor at that time, I'm thinking he was the pastor. Yeah. He like gets oil, bro, and he just starts praying over me, bro. And I remember feeling, bro, literally feeling, bro, the fever and everything just lift off of me.
Come on.
Literally.
Wow.
And I remember like my mom just crying and bawling and her desperation. And I remember just feeling instantly better.
Dang.
And I remember just starting to like function and look around, and my curiosity came back as a child. And I'm being in the church right there, and I remember I think they fed us afterwards and everything. And
that sounds like a good church, bro.
Yeah, bro. Like I remember,
you got anointed, and you got some food after. You got some tacos after. Jeez.
And but that was an experience I remember as a kid. And I remember after that, my mom, she didn't become dedicated, but I remember every now and then she would, hey, we're going to go to church. And I remember it would be that similar church, because it would be that, Holy Ghost, apostolic, bro. Like, you know what I mean?
Is this like a Spanish church?
Spanish church,
oh,
yeah.
Man, dude.
So
I can say the Spanish churches get down, bro.
Yeah.
Like, they get down, man. Like, I'm sure your guys' church gets crazy too, but shout out to those Spanish churches.
Yeah.
I work a lot in LA and stuff. Sometimes in South Central, I pass by. Dude, you'll have like on a Monday night in this small little ghetto little building, you just see women and men just on their face, just crying out for the city, and just, you can just tell their hearts are for the Lord. So crazy,
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, but if I'm honest with you, bro, as a kid, it would scare me though.
Yeah, like it's intimidating for sure.
It would, bro. Like, cause I remember I would like, I was a curious kid. So I remember like I would, be in the chairs, I would be behind the chairs. And then all of a sudden there was a lady or something like kneeling down on the chair. And then they would keep the room dark, just a few lights. And then they would come up and then just mascara, bro, like, because they were in the presence. I didn't. Now I understand that, but at that, I'd be like, oh man, so I'd get scared, bro, and I would ball up and then go back in the chair. But that was my only experience, really with Christianity. Like I didn't really know about. I had a reverence, like I believed in God. I had a reverence, but I would never. It was more just like, God protect me, but that was it. So it was just, it wasn't until, when I finally, I came back to high school and I couldn't fit in, bro. I just couldn't fit in. And I finally came across some old friends that I used to hang out with. And at this time now, they were all in, gang banging.
Neighborhood, you're saying?
Yeah, they were gang banging. They were dressed up, you know, like we used to say they were G'd up from the fleet up, you know what I mean? And I was just, when I saw them, I said, man, what's up? And they remembered me. So, and at that point, they just said, hey, you know what? We're going to have this on this day, come through. The next day, I linked up with them. And from that moment on, I just started hanging out with them. I left school. I left high school. I literally only went to high school for 2 weeks, bro.
Really?
Literally only 2 weeks, man.
Wow.
And I left everything, and I just, you know, because my relationship with my dad, man, like it never got better at that time. You know, like it always felt like and at that point I just got tired. You know, I really got tired of like trying to prove something to him. Cause it was like, man, I was 2 years in Mexico. I embraced everything. You know, and it seems like he's still, I don't know, if embarrassed or ashamed of me. What? Like I couldn't pinpoint it. But at that point I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. And that's when I said, you know what? I remember as a child, this was where it was at. Now it's being reintroduced to me again. I know this life. I know about this life. You know what? Let's do it. And I went all in. You know, I got jumped into the hood, you know, and I started hanging out with the homies. And, you know, at that time, you know, we're teenagers now. So we got deep into everything, you know. But at the same time, you know, that's when I got deep into drugs. You know, I got deep into drugs, man. And
Crazy, like hardcore drug, more like weed was, not to be specific, but was it pretty crazy?
Weed wasn't really a big factor. I got into crystal meth.
Really?
You know, yeah.
That's some heavy, in high school, bro, that's some heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
You're young still.
I was young, bro. I was 15 when I first tried it, you know, 15 years old. And what's crazy about that drug, man, is that, you know, that's why I'm so passionate about bringing awareness, because the thing is that when you don't know who you are, you know, it's so easy to just give yourself to other things, to give yourself to other people.
That's good.
But you never understand the consequences behind it. Like I never had an issue with drinking. I never had an issue with weed, but it was that one drug. Once I tried that drug, I was instantly hooked, man. You know, and that's what, you know, that's why, again, like I'm so passionate about it, because it's like, man, it's better to, I'd rather see people discover, you know what I mean, what's really going on in their life and proactively work on it, and before they have to go and try something that might potentially ruin their lives. Because, man, like I was hooked, bro. And eventually, man, the things that we started to do for fun, you know, eventually I started to sell it, you know, to support the habit. I started to sell it, you know, I started to, you know, the money was good and everything, but what good was it if I was hooked? You know, so I would sell enough so that I can just buy more, but I would do the rest, you know, and it was fun for that moment, but, you know, it eventually, you know, led me to catch 2 more cases.
Jeez.
As a juvenile.
Like drug charges?
No, both of them violent charges.
Wow.
But one of them was armed robbery, and I ended up doing almost a year. So from the age of 16 to the age of 17.
Wow.
That was the good thing that came out from that situation, though, was I was able to get my GED.
It's like a camp that you went to, or what was it?
Yeah, it's called Spring Mountain Youth Camp, and it's about 45 minutes from Vegas, and maybe a little bit further. But it's a facility out there that it's considered a 1A school, 1A facility. So it's still they still have their credentials and everything. You get legit teachers to come, and there's sports programs there too. I was able to play baseball there, high school baseball. So that was my high school experience in sports. Was I got to play high school baseball, and we would go and we would travel. We would play against other 1A schools, bro. But these 1A schools were no joke,
Really,
bro. Like Friday Night Lights. You've seen that movie?
Yeah.
Okay, you know how like small town, like everyone's about it, about the sports, like sports are life.
Yeah.
That we would go up against schools like that, bro.
Wow.
So you would have parents and everyone, bro, like, you know, coming out, sitting on their trucks, watching the baseball game, bro. We would go up against pitchers that, bro, they were literally like JV. And they were pitching like 89, 90 miles an hour, bro.
Wow.
And
And it's not like your school can recruit. You guys are just putting a team, whoever can go. But were you guys like good and stuff, or?
We were pretty good.
Yeah.
We were decent. But again, like when we would go up with the newer schools that we would go up against, we would compete with them. But
Man, that's crazy.
But like these established like 1A schools, bro, like there was no way we couldn't compete with them.
Yeah.
And it was funny because like they would have all their crowds and we would have like the correctional officers in the back.
I think of the movie Gridiron Gang. You see that one?
Yeah,
with The Rock?
Yeah. That's exactly how it was, bro.
funny.
Like they had a football program, wrestling, basketball, baseball, track and field. So they had all that, man. And it was because they're going Vegas, and I think in any juvenile system though, the goal is always to like try to recover, try to rehab, try to save that juvenile.
Yeah.
So it was revolved around program and stuff like that, and it was always they're always trying to encourage positivity. But the good thing is I was able to get my GED from there.
You must have got clean too, right? Because you can't. Well, I guess you could use in there. It's like you can get almost anything in there, but
no. I mean, as they were very strict on that. As a matter of fact, like people that they would get caught instantly. They would always try to sneak things in. And they had a real good system there, and so I was able to stay clean, and I was able to get in shape. I was able to get recovered and everything, and but I still had my friends in there. I still had a few people that I was locked up with. So I still had that gang mentality. I still had like, where I'm going to represent. So as soon as I got out, I mean, I probably did good for about a week. Got some good meals with the family, things like that. And then I went straight back to the hood, straight back with the homies. And but now
I feel like I'm like watching like a real life blood in blood out movie, like Miklo Vegas comes in, comes out. Like, this is crazy, bro. Your story is crazy. I want to stop you real quick right there because I'm just like I'm trying to picture it all, and I'm like, bro, this is the guy that sat like 3 cubicles away from me. Like this is like what? Like,
answering claims, huh? Like,
like I'm your representative. Like what? This is crazy, and I'm just like I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and I'm like, bro, like you've been moved around so much.
Yeah.
And you've had to adapt. And when you go to camp, you have to adapt. When you go to Mexico, you have to adapt. You keep talking about this, and I'm just like, I just feel like your identity this entire time, you haven't been able to establish yourself.
Yeah.
You're constantly being relocated and everything. It's just crazy. So, okay, so talk to us a little bit about what happens as you come out.
Yeah, so I like I said, about a week, have some good meals with the family, but then I go right back. And this time, because I networked.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing sometimes about the system, is that it gives you an opportunity to recover and to rehabilitate if you really want to. But most of the time, man, you actually build a network, and that's what I did. I started to network with, like I met a long lost cousin, who I hadn't seen in years, and he was gangbanging now. And we happened to not be rivals. We were from different gangs, but we weren't rivals. So man, so right away we link up. He introduces me to a whole nother world too, and so we start, and he actually recently passed away, not from gang violence, thank God. It was a sickness that hit his body. And, but, he introduced me to a whole nother world because he was about a year older than me. So the drugs, the violence, it just got deeper because now, that's the thing. Like you were locked up. It kind of you have a stripe. That's kind of how they look at it, or how you look at it. Like okay, you did time. Like time doesn't scare you. You know what I mean? Like you did the crime, you did the time. You know what I mean? You didn't rat anyone out. You took it like a champ. You know what I mean? Like so now you're worthy of. And so the respect and everything, like it was received, but it just got crazier, like I said, the violence, the drugs, the drug use, everything, it just got worse, and I probably did good for about, not good, I'm sorry, I probably stayed out for maybe about 2 months, 3 months.
Wow.
And then my mom, this is crazy, my mom, she found my gun. She found I had a gun that I would stash, and I would stash it behind some speakers. And she found it that day. And I usually always had it with me.
Yeah.
But that day, my cousin, he went to pick me up, and we were just going to go do something real quick, and I was going to come back. And I remember I told him, we're on our way to his house, and I'm like, hey, bro, I'm like, hey, take me to the house. I forgot my strap. I forgot my gun. And I was like, I don't want to, we say like, I don't want to be naked without
Yeah.
it. That's kind of the saying.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, for sure. So we go, he had a Bronco. We pull up and nobody was there. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, perfect. So I go in, I go to the speaker and it was gone. My bullets. Oh, so it was gone. I always had it loaded. So that was gone. I go to a stash that I had in the garage with bullets. I had bullets and different things. So I go in there and it was gone too.
Dang.
Like, what? So I ended up leaving and then he's like, did you get it? I'm like, no, man, it's not there. I'm like, dang, man. I'm like, you know what? I think my mom found it. He's like, let's go. So we leave and then I call my mom to kind of feel her out.
Feel it out, yeah.
Yeah, and then she answers and she's acting weird, bro.
You could tell.
Because usually, like if I call her, she's like, what do you want in Spanish? She's like, what do you want? Where are you? What are you doing? When are you gonna come home? Like, why? This time she was like super nice. She's like, oh, where are you, son? Like, in Espanol, it's like, ¿Dónde estás, mijo? And I knew right away because I already knew my mom. So I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, no, nothing. She's like, are you gonna come home? I knew something was up, bro.
Yep.
So I'm like, you know what? I told my cousin, I'm like, hey man, something's happened. So all of a sudden, bro, like 15 minutes later, bro, we hear knocks on the door at my cousin's house. Blam, blam, blam. And then lo and behold, it was my cousin's probation officer.
Oh, wow.
So somehow, and my mom told them like I was most likely at my cousin's house. So they used my cousin's probation officer to get the door open because when you're on probation, they don't need probable cause.
Right.
They'll go in your house at any time, any moment. They don't care. So they go in and then right behind, my probation officer, bro. And then I'm like,
Be honest, were you mad at your mom?
oh, yeah.
You're pissed.
Oh, yeah, man. We try to hide. Both of us try to run and hide, man. I was in the shower.
Oh, no.
And you know what? I almost thought I got away because they had gone in and they checked around and they moved the curtain and they didn't see me.
They didn't
I'm
see
like,
you.
oh man, I think I got. And then they're like, I can hear them. They're like, oh, he probably went out the window or something like that. But then my probation officer goes back into the bathroom and then pulls the curtain all the way.
Dang.
And then he's like, come on. Like, let's go. Like, you know why. Let's go. Come on. And yeah, man, like, so my mom had, revealed, like, hey, as soon as she found the gun, she called my PO. And then my PO did a thorough search. And, they have years of experience. So that first place that he's like, that was the first place I looked, right? In the stash in the garage. He found all my bullets.
He knew. That's crazy.
And he's like, those are some nice hollow tips though you had, And I was like, man,
I was gonna ask you, how'd your mom find in the garage? Like, that's crazy. So it wasn't her.
No, the bullets.
She found
the gun.
Yeah.
Because the gun I always had a place where easy access, and then but she never went there. She never looked, But so yeah, I was mad. I was infuriated, man. I'm like, I didn't want to call her. She tried to call me. I remember like once they sent after booking, they almost moved me right away to the detention center. And at the detention center, she tried to call me, and I'm like, hello, and she's like, oh, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Don't call me anymore. We're done. That's it. I was mad. I was like, why would you do that?
Is your dad still in the picture in this time?
Yeah, he's still there, but
He's
at that
checked
time,
out?
at that time, my dad's like, if we had a disconnection back then, now, boom, because I became something that my dad never liked cholos, so now I became something that he disliked, so it was just game on, you know what I mean? And, but I was like, I'm done, and I didn't care if they called me. I didn't want them to visit me, nothing. But then that was my first God experience. My first God experience was because before I would have little things here and there happen in my sleep, but this time I was in my cell, I was asleep, and I was having, I was good. All of a sudden in my dream though, it was so clear as day. It was a Home Depot parking lot that's literally right by my house. And I was there and it was me and another friend. And then all of a sudden a truck comes by, a little small truck, boom, comes, makes a U-turn, and there were bald headed. They were gangsters, and then they shouted something, and at that moment we started to run. My friend runs, I started to run, but in my dream, I feel like I'm going nowhere. Like I'm like there's a wall that's literally a couple feet away, but I can't get there, and I'm running, and I just hear the bullets, boom, boom, and I sense them, and all of a sudden, one just hits me in the back of the neck, and I wake up.
Wow.
I wake up, and I wake up sweating. I wake up worried. I wake up like I've never felt like that, and I'm like, what the heck? And I couldn't go back to sleep, and it was just bugging me. I'm like, and that's when it started to hit me. Maybe I got locked up for a reason. Maybe I got locked up for a reason, but I didn't want to accept it.
Yeah.
So it kept bugging me. So I finally call my mom, and I say, hey, Mom, like, you know what? I know that she was the last person I wanted to talk to, but I felt like she was the only one that could say something. So I finally, because at that time, now my mom is back in the church. She's back in church. She rededicated her life, and at that moment, she's praying for us. She's seeing what's happening to me and my brother, and she's praying for us, man. And so I tell her my dream. I'm like, look, Mom, I called you because of this. And my mom starts crying. She starts crying, and she's like, son, mijo. She's like, I know you're mad at me. I know, but you're in there for a reason. Something was going to happen to you.
And that was your dream.
And I couldn't hold back now. And I start crying, bro.
Wow.
It was just, that was my first God moment. My first God moment, because even though everything within me wanted to deny my reason, everything, it wanted to deny it. But she was right, because I really was in some really bad paths. We were doing things, man, that to a whole nother level. And I felt it. Yeah. I felt it, even though I wasn't saved, but I felt it. I felt something coming, and when she said that, I just broke down, bro. Man. I just broke down, man. And that was the first time. Afterwards, I remember that was after that, a few days later, that was the first time I accepted Christ.
Wow.
Into my life.
And this is in the
in juvie.
Wow.
Yeah,
crazy.
In juvie. And for the first time, that's when I started to feel the transformation. And that's why I always tell people, man, that I'm such a firm believer that transformation doesn't come instant. It really truly is a process, especially depending the life we come from. And I know for me it wasn't instant, but I do remember that for the first time I wanted to do good. I wanted to change. And I started to pray. I started to read the word. I started to trust. I'm like, because at that time I remember I was against the wall. Well, the juvenile system was against the wall, because all my offenses were violent. And then I violated with the gun charge now. So they were really thinking about sending me to one of the worst facilities in Nevada at that time for juveniles. And right there, it's game on. You know what I mean? Like, that's where all the gangbangers, like violent offenders, everything, that's where they all go. If they're not able to be tried as an adult, that's where they go. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be able to do good here. Like, I'm not going to be able to, and I remember praying. I'm like, God, I know what I've done. So whatever happens, happens. But if you can help me with this one and send me anywhere else but there. But I said, but again, whatever does happen, happens. And sure enough, man, a lady came, she interviewed me. She's like, hey, you know why I'm here? I'm like, yeah. She's like, I'm here to decide, whether, so my recommendation goes a long way. She's like, but, she talked to me. She's like, do you really want to change? And I said, yeah. And she's like, okay. So she interviewed me and everything. And then when I went to sentencing, they're like, I was expecting, I was like, nah, like, I'm a gang, they got gang records on me, everything. I said, I'm going, I already know. And then when she says, all right, we're recommending 7 months at Caliente in Nevada. And Caliente, it was a different facility. And right there, they're more focused on counseling and all that stuff, therapy and all that. Ooh, man, there was like a peace, bro, that just came over me, man. And and that's what I needed, because when I went up there, nobody from my neighborhood was there. Nobody from my hood. There were other gangsters there, but no rivals. That was weird. No one from my hood was there. That was weird, because all of them were on these other different facilities. And it was really like God showing me, like, I got you.
Wow.
I got you. And it wasn't an easy journey, man. But, I learned a lot there. I learned a lot. And I would love to say that I learned my lesson, because I really did.
Yeah, yeah.
That was really my intention, but as soon as I came out, I did better. Like, I enrolled in college. I was trying to go on the right path. I even tried to enlist in the Marines.
Really.
And I think that's what really discouraged me, because I was ready for the Marines. Like, I had letters of recommendation from the juvenile facility and everything. And, ex-Marines that were there, that were on staff, they wrote me letters, and but once the Marine recruiters saw my record, they're like, you know what? Like, and not in a bad way, but they told me, they're like, look, it's too soon. We can't recruit you yet, especially because of the charges that you've had. And I said, yeah, but it was when I was a juvenile, because I was 18 already at this time. And they're like, yeah, we understand, but we just can't. We just can't. Look, what are you doing right now? Well, I'm enrolled in college, community college. Okay, good. Stay there 6 months to a year, and then as a matter of fact, the schooling is going to help you to get to a better place, better position. But I didn't take it that way. I really saw that was my only hope, and
It's that rejection again, huh?
yeah, so I felt like, man, and that really discouraged me. And I remember that day I was on my way to school and I had the books right there and everything. And I was so discouraged. I said, man, I'm gonna go visit the homie. And I went to go visit the homie. And from that moment on, man, like it started to go down again. It just started to go back down. And I started, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna use drugs. I'm not gonna use drugs. You know what I mean? But then I they had a party that night, went, and I started to use again. And everything just went downhill from there. But that's where, at that stage, that's when my addiction became even more severe. Like, it became bad, where I started to steal for it.
Wow.
I started to, do shady stuff for it. I started to desire it more, my anger, the way I was treating my family now, like everything just was going from worse to worse. And that's when I finally told me, they're like, that's when they started to tell me about the Victory Outreach recovery homes. That's when I started to, like, it was randomly, like, I would get. And then my uncle, he was in there and out here in San Bernardino. And so I started to get calls from him and from his dad telling me, like, hey, you should come. And I wasn't ready, bro. Like, I just wasn't. Like, the drugs had taken over. I started to sell again, I was just so immersed again in that life. And I didn't feel ready, and I just felt like, what's the point? But I just kept going from rock bottom. Like, every time I felt like I hit rock bottom, like, I would hit another rock bottom. Like, it would just get worse, bro. Like, doors started to close. And then, literally, bro, in a matter of a month, I'm not even kidding, in a matter of a month, I went to the county jail 3 times, bro.
Really?
In the matter of a month.
It's out in Vegas still, right?
Out in Vegas, yeah. And the last time I was like, okay, I need to make this change, man. And that's when I finally, I talked, and that was the first time I had a talk with my dad, in a long time.
Wow.
Long time. And I finally opened up to my dad, because I think I had so many things bottled up that I wasn't talking to anyone about it. So I finally opened up to him about it. And I started to tell him, like, things that I had been doing, things that I had done, and my dad, man, I remember, like, his face, he was just, like, in disbelief, man. Like he couldn't believe it, but he told me, he's like, look, if you're really ready to do this, we'll support you. And we're going to go to a wedding in Oxnard this Saturday. Go with us. And then on the way back, I'll drop you off in San Bernardino.
Wow.
And that's exactly what happened, man.
Wow.
And I came.
What age were you, like, around?
18. I was 18 still. I was 18, man. And December 6th, 2014, that was the day that I'll never forget that day, you know, because I was like, I even have like a little clip where I say I'm locking myself up.
Wow.
Because all these other times I was getting locked up,
Yeah.
you know, for other things.
Yeah.
But this was the first time that I made a conscious decision, and it was a God decision, man, because everything within me didn't want to, man. But all the doors in Vegas were closing. My friends were turning their backs on me. They were accusing me of things, bro, that weren't true. Doors were closing on me. I didn't have anywhere to live anymore. You know, I was homeless, bro. Like literally, because I couldn't go home. You know, my mom and dad, they're like, no. Like I had a young sister at that time. She was young, you know, and I was, you know, she was probably like 7 or 8 years old, I think. Yeah. You know, so I wasn't the example my parents wanted around, you know, and things that I was doing, you know, I was bringing danger to the home. You know, people were coming and tagging in the front of our house, of the walls in front of our house. They were tagging them, like, you know, and death threats. You know, it wasn't just like crossing out, like it was death threats.
Wow.
You know, so they didn't want me around, and I didn't want to be around either because I didn't want to bring that to them.
Yeah.
So I was literally homeless, bro. Like literally, I would go from house wherever they would receive me. And I would, you know, since I was on drugs, you know, it was easy for me to move around, you know. But, you know, whatever I could get clothes, I would get clothes. So I was rock bottom, bro, you know. But God was calling my name. God was like, you know, that's the beautiful thing about God, bro, is that as much as I was resisting him, like, because I really was, he wasn't giving up. You know, he wasn't giving up, you know. And to this day, it breaks me because it's like, man, like I rejected him so much. I would promise him so much. I'd be like, all right, God, this time, get me out one more time. And he would come through in crazy ways, but I would go right back.
Yeah.
And so, but that was when I'm so grateful. December 6th, 2014, man, that was the day my life changed, man, when I went into that recovery home, man. And God really, it was just weird, man, because I never felt that. But I just couldn't stop crying. You know, like they would have devotions in the morning, and I just like, bro, I would love to take you to one day to one of their devotions or send you a recording of when they're singing in their devotions. It's horrible.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's horrible, bro. Like you have a bunch of men in there that are like no tune, like no singing experience. Like the home director has like a raspy voice. Like everything is just like, but the words, like the words that they would sing and everything, I would just listen to them because I didn't know the songs.
Yeah.
And it would just break me, bro. And it would just, man, and that's where God really started to do the work. That's where I surrendered. I surrendered my addiction. I surrendered my gang violence. I surrendered all that part of me. I surrendered it right there. And that's where transformation took place, man.
Bro,
in my
that's
life.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so good to hear because, you know, we've heard about the homes. We've heard, you know, VO, there's a bunch around here. We've known people and stuff like that. But it's just like, it's so amazing. I told Ryan, like I said, we had him here on the podcast. And I told him, I was like, man, it's so amazing the work that you guys are doing because you guys are changing lives. Yeah. But it's not just like, oh, come to our church and we'll change your life. Like, bro, there's a place where like the people that no one wants around, you know what I mean, are going and getting that healing and stuff. Yeah. But from what I've heard, the home isn't just a walk in the park. You're waking up early. Man. There's discipline. Yeah. You got to go to the church. You got to sit in a section. You got to get suited up. Like, it's very like structured, right? Yeah. Was that hard for you to get used to? I mean, you were already in with the youth, you know, in the camps and stuff. So you already kind of know the program. But there must have been some times you're just like, were you ever, or I guess that's my question, were you ever just like, man, I'm up out of here. I'm done with this.
Yeah, there was a few times, man. There was a few times where, because it was, bro, and I was the youngest guy there. I'm 18 years old, and I'm there with guys that were in their late 20s, mid 20s, but 30s, 40s even. And so, you know, I was the youngest guy there, man, and but the thing is, man, it's a blessing and it's a curse, that ability to adapt, you know, and the reason why I say it's a blessing because I was able to adapt, like rules, structure, all that. Like it wasn't that difficult for me because I had been in juvie, you know, I had lived in Mexico, you know, I knew how to live in a institutionalized, I knew it. And so, but the reason why I say it was a curse is because sometimes, you know, adapting isn't sufficient. you know, because then you don't allow God to do what he really wants to do in your life, because it's so easy to be programmed,
Yeah.
you know, and but still there's still underlying issues that God wants to deal with. So while I was in the home, you know, like one thing, I remember one time I did want to leave, bro, like because it was and it wasn't even because of anything bad. It was more like because I remember I started to get I picked up a flyer. I think it was like a brochure, and it was a brochure that had contradictions about Christian faith, bro. And that was the first time my faith was tested, and I was in there for like about 4 months at that time, 3-4 months, and I was reading it, and because that was one thing that when I came to Christ, all that started to come, like that that desire for knowledge, that desire for that hunger. Like I really hungered to learn, bro.
Yeah.
And so anything that I remember I saw a scripture on it, so I started to read it. But not little did I know that it was all things to contradict. And you know what was crazy is that as soon as I stopped reading it, bro, like just something weird came upon me, man. And I started to like feel angry, anxious. And I said, I'm out of here. Like, I'm wasting my time. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm cleaned up. I'm good. I'm out. But something wouldn't let me, you know? And it was God. Like, you know, I couldn't leave. I'm like, no, I just can't up and leave. And nobody was in the house at that time. I was left there to take care of the house that day. So it could have been so easy for me to grab my stuff and leave. So what I did is I locked myself in the room, in one of the rooms, and I started to pray. And I'm like, God, if you're real, show me, please, because I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to go. If this fate, I don't want to waste my time. And so I just like study something, just study, read my word, remember. And so what I started to do, bro, is I didn't even know what I was doing, bro, but that was my first study that I actually did and wrote. And I wrote, bro, like a 2-3 page, you know, essay or whatever you want to call it, on proving the divinity of Jesus, bro.
Wow.
And so that's where, and I remember like, bro, my faith just strengthened so much from that moment. And I think that's where that curiosity to learn, that desire to continuously learn just started to come up again, you know, and man, like, and then from that, like, I just became a student. I became a student, and where I'm like, no, you know what, like, my beliefs and who Christ is going to be firm, like, you know, because I can't deny what he's done for me. I can't. But now I don't just want to, you know, defend it with a testimony. I want to defend it with scripture. You know, I want to be able to, and it was more for me personal. But I think that was the only time, the biggest moment that I was like, man, I'm out of here. You know, other than that, man, like, I was able to easily adapt. You know, the work wasn't a big deal for me. None of that I was able to get it done. We would do car washes at that time, bro. And we hated them, man. Like, everyone hated them, man. But
you sell candies too and all that?
No, we never did that. I think we're at that time we would just do car washes, and then we would do like side jobs like construction, things like that. And that's where I learned a few things. And
that's good.
You know, but yeah, no, it was never you know, again, like the blessing and the curse of being able to adapt.
Yeah.
It was a blessing because I was able to flow, finish my program, but it was a curse at the same time because I didn't let God really do what he needed to do inside of my life.
That's good. Well, bro, thank you so much. I mean, I wish we had more time. We got to do like a part 2 because you have so much more now about your life. So like, and like, let's say like, give us like 5 minutes of where your life's at now. Cause you got your wife here in the studio. You know, I know you got kids at home, bro. Somehow you landed a job at a great, you know, claims with this crazy, you know, like I don't know what came in background checks. I don't know what they missed on your background check, bro. But like, honestly, if I met you, bro, I would have not known any of those things. I thought you would have just been raised normal, good upbringing, and you just you got a diploma, and you were good. You got a degree, and now you're working this amazing job, and you have amazing, like, a normal life, bro. I had no clue. But give us a couple minutes of where you're at now, because like I said, you got your wife here. You're living a blessed life, bro.
Yeah, so I'm married, and we have 3 kids. 3 beautiful kids, daughter, 2 boys.
Did you guys meet in the church, you and your wife?
Yeah, so we met at the church, and that's a whole nother story too, right there, man. It's because there's a dark side and a blessing side to it. You know what I mean? And you know, but basically, Right there, we're there at the church. We both serve full-time ministry now,
amazing.
so it's amazing to be able to work there. And
You're doing that for you're doing that full time. You said, huh?
yeah, so I'm doing that full time
So you're
now.
not working any other job.
No. So that's
that's
one of the reasons
amazing.
why I left Travelers. You know, the reason why I had left was because it was during that time. I want to say like the last 3 months that I was there at Travelers. Again, I don't recommend anyone to do it. You know what I mean? Like I really like, unless God is the one that's. But I wasn't happy anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and we
Bro,
had.
same, dude. That's
Yeah.
the same for me. Sorry, go for it.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
like,
yeah.
Yes, thank you, guys. Someone understands me. It's hard, bro.
It is because, you know, like again, like, I had this journey, and again, I never let God deal with some underlying things in my life, and it wasn't, you know, I had to go through a divorce. You know, I had to go through, in my first marriage, I went through a divorce, and then it was other situations that started to come up in my life where it started to really see that, George, you know what I mean? You never dealt with these things.
Wow. So real quick, you were married
Yeah.
previously. I had not known that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. So this is after the home,
Yeah, so
You
this
were
is
married,
after the home,
divorce, and now,
yeah,
dude, that's crazy.
yeah, and so it's unfortunate, you know what I mean? Because again, it's not something I always tell people. God gave me a grace card,
Yeah.
but I don't encourage other people to
Bro,
do it.
you got a grace. You got a
Yeah.
full hand of grace,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
but it took me years of drowning in guilt, shame. You know, I wasn't able to really do ministry at peace.
Yeah.
You know, and every time I would try, it was difficult. You know, and it wasn't until, you know, I finally started to get counseling. You know, I started to get counseling and therapy, and that's when you know, things started to turn around in my life, in our marriage, and everything. And but now that side of things started to heal, now I was here. I was a great career, man. You know, great
Yeah.
company, you know, making great money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there was such an emptiness inside of me because I knew what God was calling me to do.
Yeah.
I knew that. And again, that's why I'm very careful with how I share this with people, because, you know, it was a process of about, I want to say that literally started, my grandma passed away in February of 2021. She passed away, and it was literally from after that moment all the way up until I left Travelers in December, that it was that process where God was dealing with me almost every day.
Wow.
I would drive home from work. I would be coming home from the gym sometimes, and I didn't know why, but I would just start crying, bro. I would start crying because I knew that I wasn't, you know what I mean? I knew that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. Like, I wanted to be around people, but I would isolate myself from people. You know, I wanted to share things with them, but I wouldn't because of how I would feel. You know, I would see things in the church that, you know, I was like, man, this can change.
Yeah.
But I would never speak up because it's like, if I'm not going to speak up about something that I'm not willing to do, you know, I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, but it was always something, man. So fast forward, man, I finally, you know what, God confirmed, you know, my wife, we came up with a plan, you know what I mean? Like, we prayed about it. I talked to my pastor about it, and I said, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready to go full time. You know, I'm ready to go back to what God desires me to be. It's not a church thing. It's not about religion. It's really about the God-given purpose that God has given to us, you know, and so we're happy to be able to be there, man. We're part of the staff there. I'm part of the preaching staff there as well.
Amazing.
You know, it's amazing what God is doing there. San Bernardino, man, is with all my heart, I believe it. It's a sleeping giant. You know, I know a lot of things, bad things come about San Bernardino.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, it does sadden me
Yeah.
when I drive around my city and I see the condition of my city. But I don't know why. I feel it within me that it is a sleeping giant, man. And that's what we're doing, man. We're just trying to do whatever we can to bring hope to that city.
That's amazing, bro. Well, dude, thanks so much for coming
Yeah,
on, man.
thank you,
It's such
man.
a blessing to have you on.
Thank you, bro.
Real quick, can you give a shout out where people can follow you, where people can check out your podcast? Because,
Yeah.
bro, I'm so excited for you to start this, man, because I feel like you have
Yeah.
so much to share, so much wisdom, bro, so much wisdom on
Yeah.
all your life experiences.
Thank
like,
you, man.
You can help people, bro, not go down some of the same paths and do the same thing. And you're just talking about mental health. You're talking about identity. It's not just like, don't join gangs, don't do drugs. It's like, no, don't do this stuff because these are some serious issues that I dealt with and stuff. So where can people follow you, find you, YouTube, all that? Plug it in, man.
Yeah, so YouTube, Offbeat Podcast, and then Instagram, you can find us as Offbeat Podcast _ and then my personal page is _ Ambriz, AMBRIZJLA. You can find us there, follow us there, and yeah, we're excited, bro. We're
Thanks,
excited,
bro. Well,
man.
thanks for coming
No,
on. I
thank
hope
you,
everyone
man.
can get on
Thank you.
and just follow you, subscribe. I hope all my subscribers get over to you because, bro, I'm excited to see this channel blow up, man.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you having me, man.
So proud of you, bro. It's so cool. I'm so
Thank
glad
you,
we
man.
connected.
Yeah,
so with
such
that
a
being
small
said,
world, bro.
Yeah, dude, come on. Like how I'm just like, dude, from like traveler, like being adjusters to work.
Yeah.
I would have never thought we'd be sitting in this room right now,
No,
bro. And doing
never,
this.
man,
Like
never.
what? Bro, so just thank you again, man. I really appreciate you. Guys, go check out Offbeat, man. So amazing. I don't know. I think this is our middle camera off. Okay, so I'm looking here. So guys, go check out my friend right here. Go check out his stuff. You guys are going to be so blessed by all of the content. I'm actually going to link his information in the description below. So go follow him. And with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next episode.